join as the presentation's going on.
Yeah.
Are there
I'm ready if you are.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just make my little announcement. So anyone who's in attendance, thank you very much for joining us tonight. You'll hear the introduction pretty soon. But I just wanted to mention that if you are in attendance, you will not be able to share your screen or have your video on or be able to talk. If you'd like to ask questions during the presentation or afterwards, you can type them into the chat box and I will monitor that chat box and we'll get those questions to Diana and possibly even John if he wants to answer a few of them too at the end when we'll have a little Q&A session. If anyone has any questions, yeah, feel free to reach out, put it in the chat box, and I'll make sure they get answered. John, take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm John Suzukita. This is my 10th year on the Shoreview Environmental Quality Committee, and we welcome you to the speaker series. We hold these every year. We had the first one in January. This is the one, of course, in February. We will be having one in March 17th. The title will be Planting for Pollinators and Clean Water, and that'll be a great discussion by Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District experts. Then on April 21st, we will be having Twin Cities Coyote and Fox Project. That's really going to be an interesting one as well. So some researchers from the University of Minnesota will be talking about what they've been doing there. So it is my pleasure to be able to introduce Diana Mccown. She recruited me, 4 years ago, I think it was, to join Metro CERT's Clean Energy Resources team. Diana joined the Great Plains Institute in July 2013 and is currently the Metro Clean Energy Resource Team's director. Diana has led the Metro region in CERT since October of 2007. And she's coordinated and participated in a number of clean energy initiatives. Diana holds a BS in environmental studies from the University of Minnesota. And I would editorially add that she is on her second EV at this point. And frankly, through life experiences, my perspective is until you do something, you don't really know. And so she's coming at this topic, not just from kind of a clean energy initiative perspective, but also being a practitioner. So please join me in welcoming Diana, please.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I am going to share my screen. Uh-oh. I need you to allow me to share my screen.
I think, Maria, if you can do the share screen with Diana, please.
Yep, I'm working on it.
Oh, okay. Let me see it. All right. All right, can you see my screen, my presentation?
Yep, good.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so we are going to do a little bit of electric vehicle one-on-one. We're not one-on-one, although it looks like it's just me presenting to John. So happy to be here. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So just an overview, there's me with my second electric vehicle. Both of them were Nissan Leafs. This is a 2019 Plus. So it has a little bit longer range. Just an overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about why should you consider an EV, talk a bit about the state of the market, a little bit about charging and some myths and facts, and we'll go through some tools and resources. So first, I just wanted to start off with, I have a long history with Shoreview. I think I started working with Shoreview like back in 2008. We did this Beat Betty contest at a senior home right behind the community center over there. And in 2019, I had the privilege of working with the city on a project with Cummins Incorporated. So me from Great Plains and CERTs and the city and Cummins, and we helped do some support and work and research for the charger that is now at the City Hall Community Center, and it was a pretty cool project. And here's a little socially distanced picture from June when it was fully installed. We were so excited to be there. So why EVs? So first I'm going to talk about the different kinds. There are three main types of electric vehicles. And so the first is a battery electric vehicle, or some people call it a full electric vehicle. That is a vehicle that only has electric power. It does not have a gas tank. It's 100% electric. You can only refuel from charging stations, and there are zero emissions. Then there is what we call the PHEV, or plug-in hybrid electric. And that is a vehicle that you plug it in to get that electric charge, and it goes, a certain amount on the electric charge, and then it would switch over to gas. And, as long as you're plugging it in, a number of people are using mostly electric as long as they're plugging those vehicles in. Go a moderate range, about 50 miles or so on electric before it switches. It depends, each model is a little different. And then we have the hybrid electric vehicle. This is, the old school Priuses that are a hybrid. It's, good gas mileage, but you don't plug it in, you don't recharge that electric. The car kind of decides when it's electric. It uses the electric motor usually at low speeds and to increase the miles per gallon. So it's better than nothing, but we really, when we talk about electric vehicles, we're usually talking about the full battery electric or the plug-in. Just a couple examples of a full battery electric vehicle: Chevy Bolt. Just some stats about the miles it can go. The range it has, the cost. We have this calculation of what are the miles per gallon electric. It's about 118 miles. Some other stats about how fast they go. That's something that people don't talk about. There's good torque, so they can get up to speed pretty quickly, and it has some really great safety ratings. A common plug-in hybrid electric, especially for cities, I work a lot with cities on electric vehicles, is this Mitsubishi Outlander. The first 22 miles or so are all electric before then it switches over to the combustion engine. So as long as you're plugging it in regularly, you can do a lot of your miles on electric. The benefit for a lot of folks for this particular plug-in hybrid is that it has 1,500 pounds of towing capacity for folks that have a boat, etc., a snowmobile, and they want to pull a trailer. That's a good option. And then again, Toyota Prius is a really good example of a hybrid electric vehicle. There are no tax credits for hybrids. Pretty good, again, efficiency, and there's no fully electric miles on it. So what are the benefits of EV ownership? For me, less maintenance and more fuel savings. And the less maintenance is a money thing, but it's also for me a time thing. I don't have to get oil changes, etc. I basically need to rotate my tires, and that's about it. Obviously, the emissions, also pollutant reductions when you talk about particulate matter, etc. Cleaner communities. If you're, there's less mobile pollution resource or emissions. The electric vehicles can do just about everything that a traditional vehicle could do. Most of, some of the smaller ones don't have towing capacity. I think one thing that people don't talk about enough is the noise pollution. They're quiet. There's not much noise. Super fun to drive. That's also underrated. When somebody gets in a vehicle and drives it, they realize how fun it is to drive. So obviously there's environmental motivation. You're an environmental committee and you have a lot of folks that are probably interested in that aspect. Looking at greenhouse gas emissions by sector, transportation is a huge part of that. And then when you look at out of the transportation sector, light duty vehicles is about 60%, and that exhaust makes up most of that transportation portion of emissions. So, as we plug in, we're plugging into a greener and greener grid. So there's a lot of environmental motivation there for an electric vehicle. As I said, there's less maintenance, and just kind of showing a fairly comparable Chevy model that's non-electric and electric. You can just look at kind of the maintenance schedule and see the difference. Again, it's for the most part, rotating the vehicle or the tires, and there might be an air filter that you need to do, and then coolants at 150,000 miles. So it's just really not very much maintenance, and that's a big deal. For me, it's not just the money, but the time as well. For me, time is money. So I'm going to talk a bit about the state of the EV market. There have been a lot of changes even recently. So we'll talk about, we'd like to call this the decade of the EV. It's really time. The next decade is going to be really important. Huge announcement, and I'll go into it a little deeper, from General Motors recently. No tailpipe emissions after 2035. That's a really big deal. Another piece that came out recently is just that the difference, even just this year, that we'll have 30 electric vehicles from 21 brands compared to last year with 17 vehicles from 12 brands. So huge difference in the number of choices, because early on that was an issue. The choices that were out there weren't enough choices for folks. And then another really significant thing, within about a week of being inaugurated, President Biden announced a transition of the whole federal government's fleet to all electric. And that's a process. It's going to take some time, but that is a real signal to manufacturers. People, companies want that fleet contract because it's a good source of revenue. So that's going to really drive a lot of change as well. So big things. So the GM piece is huge. And there, folks might know that the biggest selling, the highest selling vehicle is the Ford F-150. It's like 35% of the market. It's huge. So they get a ton. They get a ton of their sales from vehicles, and they've got a lot of profit, and they're going to really invest that profit into trucks and SUV, from the trucks and SUVs into their electric quest. So they have this goal of going large for electric, and it's a game changer. It's really a game changer from this American-made company. So really big deal. We also literally, you can see the date on here, February 14th of 2021, like the other day, Chevy Bolt has announced an SUV that will be part of their new vehicles that they're offering. So some big announcements, more choices. People want some SUVs, more choices in SUVs, and they will have them. I did want to just highlight something kind of not in Shoreview, but not far away in White Bear Lake. There's a new electric startup called Zeus Electric Chassis, and it's really on the medium side vehicles. They're trucks, but I work again a lot with cities, and they're and utilities, and they're looking for those trucks. And so we've got a new upstart manufacturer right in our community that is also trying to source some of their components in the Midwest. They do have a pending sale to the Sacramento Municipal Utility District for some trucks. So it's very exciting to have some of that economic growth happening here in the Twin Cities. So some EV trends. This is just kind of showing the growth, and you'll see that there's a big growth in the battery electric vehicles, the plug-ins as well, and they play an important role. Some people do drive a lot more, and the battery electric might not work for you if you live in a rural area, etc. You might need more range, and so you might need a plug-in electric. But you can see kind of the trend as we go up, and we're getting to 40-50% by 2040, which is at or below where we need to go. We need to keep moving, but it's a good trend, and you're seeing that happen, and that growth, a lot of growth that's happening over time here. And this is just showing globally. So like that was just all the vehicles, and this is showing kind of by country. So interesting, China, and there's the one on the left is new short term, kind of in the short term, so until 2023, and then on the right side is kind of that longer term through 2040. And you can see China is, you know, they're going heavy into electric vehicles. Europe, obviously, US is kind of in the top third maybe here. But then obviously a number of other countries and such, you know, really kind of we're seeing the trend of them moving towards electric vehicles as well. It's not just the US, it's all over. It's not just Europe. And yeah, again, China doing a lot there. So here's just, you know, showing a chart for Minnesota and the growth of vehicles from 2018 to 2019. These are registered electric vehicles in Minnesota. The 2020 numbers aren't great, and there were some data issues. So, you know, I don't have really good numbers on 2020. There was a dip. Obviously, some manufacturers were shut down in the spring. And so there was, you know, some big differences there, but we're seeing a trend, obviously, of an increase in Minnesota specifically for electric vehicles. The key, one of the really big keys for the reduction of the price for electric vehicles is the battery. The battery cost is what really drives the cost for the vehicles. So, you know, we're seeing a really significant drop in prices for those battery packs. And, you know, they're saying, you know, at that $100 per kilowatt hour, that EVs is cheap to make as gas cars. So we're going to see some more, as we, you know, we're going to see more and more parity for electric vehicles compared to internal combustion engine vehicles as well. I'm going to move on and talk a bit about charging. So this is a chart that we show to show the different kinds of plugs in charging. And I'll start all the way to the right. So level 1 charging, if you've heard that term, is simply a basic outlet. It's a basic regular outlet. It's a slow charge. You know, it's about 3 to 5 miles of charge per hour. Any vehicle can use it. It's just a regular, you can use it at home or your workplace to do that. We call it a trickle charge usually. I have a number of friends that have full electric battery vehicles, and they use only a level 1 charge. They charge it overnight, and it's fine for them. The next one is this level 2. It's the J1772. That is a higher charge. It's a 240 line. So it adds about 10 to 20 miles of charge per hour. Most vehicles have a level 2 charge, and Tesla can use a level 2 charge with an adapter. Tesla cars have an adapter. Again, good use for home, workplace, or at a public stop. I have a level 2 charger in my garage. That's what I use. I like to have, know that I can charge it quickly if I need to, or quicker than it's quicker than an outlet. The next one is the Tesla supercharger. That is the DCFC, stands for sorry, direct current fast charger. I lost the word. So that's what we usually refer to as just a fast charger, but it's a DC fast charger. Obviously a much higher rate of charge per hour, 180 to 240 miles of charge per hour. There are these chargers for Tesla are for Tesla only. You cannot, if you don't have a Tesla, you cannot use a Tesla supercharger. But they add them pretty quickly. There is a DC fast charger that is for all other vehicles. Actually, there's 2 different plugs for other vehicles, which is the same charge per hour rate. And the CCS is what we commonly refer to this one as. It's used by European and American made models. The Tesla has an adapter and can use a CCS, but generally it's European and American made cars that use the CCS. And then there's the CHAdeMO, and that also is a DC fast charger and same charge per hour. And it's mostly used by Asian model cars. And I believe Nissan Nissan has a CHAdeMO, and I think starting this coming year, they're going to start, I think, putting in both CCS and CHAdeMO in theirs. I think they're kind of making a switch because there's not as many vehicles that use the CHAdeMO, and so trying to get on kind of a standard charging system. I think we're going to see more and more of a move towards CCS. That is what's used in Europe. All right, so those are the charging plugs. The first thing I want to say about that is that people ask all the time about, is there enough charging out there? How am I going to be sure? Most 80% plus, I think it's more like 80 to 90% of your charging happens in your home or your garage, actually, overnight. You can do it level 1 or level 2. And people say, how long does it take to charge? Well, you know, it takes 5 seconds. I just plug it in and then I walk away. It's like my cell phone. I don't stand there. And of course, it depends on where your battery's at. Very seldom, almost never is my battery empty. So, you know, it takes a couple of hours probably to charge it. But it's simple. You plug it in at, you know, at night, you know, before you go to bed, or, you know, whenever you do that. And it's ready to roll in the morning, and you unplug it and you get in your car and you go away. So just can't emphasize enough. Most charging happens at home overnight. This is, you know, when I was doing my slides, this is an older slide, and I left it in here because this is the plug share, which is probably the most commonly used app for locating a charger if you have an electric vehicle. So this is, I think, probably from the summer of 2019. And I left this in here. And the next slide I'm going to show is exactly the same, but it has the map from right now. Like yesterday, I put this picture in. So look at this map. Look at where the chargers are. Now look at Minnesota. Same map. Same map. And when I did this, I thought, well, I got to leave this in so that I really wanted you to be able to see the difference and how the charging is really growing in Minnesota. So significant growth in charging happening all over the state. In addition, some of you may have heard of Volkswagen Settlement money. That was because of the Volkswagen cheating scandal around diesel. They had a settlement. Each state got a chunk of money. Minnesota got $43 million. And, you know, the settlement money allowed for up to 15% of that money to be spent on electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So we are right now in phase 2 of those settlement dollars going out the door, and you can see the map. They're working on building out that charging infrastructure so that you can really get around Minnesota with charging. So they're building out the corridors, you know, these highways with fast charging so that you can get around the state. I did this summer go up to Two Harbors with my car with no problem charging. And I didn't need to charge in Pine City and in Duluth, but I had the option to, and Two Harbors also has a charger. So I had some good options. I'm going to move into common myths and perceived barriers, because that is a big part of what happens. And, you know, barriers are barriers, whether they're real or perceived. So we're going to really talk about kind of what are those myths and what's happening out there. So some people would say that electric vehicles don't pay their fair share of taxes. You know, gas is taxed, which pays for roads and maintenance, but it's only 45% of that total road funding. So I think people need to understand it's not 100% of the road funding, it's only a portion of it. And plug-in hybrids still buy gas, and so therefore they still pay that tax. And all battery electric vehicles in Minnesota pay an annual fee of $75. That was the legislature passed that several years ago because of this fairness issue. And then the other thing that we want to, you know, I want to say about paying your fair share is that electric vehicles pay more than the total taxes paid by an internal combustion engine, because over 10 years, because the registration taxes on your vehicle are based on vehicle price. And generally, electric vehicles are more expensive, so you're paying a higher registration tax and fee. So EV batteries don't work in the winter. So I'll say, as an experienced EV driver, this is my 5th winter. The winter does slightly reduce the range of electric batteries because you're heating, cooling, same in the summer, but not quite. It's colder, etc. So it does reduce your battery a bit, and you just have to plan around that. Some of the loss can be mitigated by managing the climate control. In most electric vehicles, they have heated seats, heated steering wheels, etc., that really mitigate the need for like blasting the heat on you. The one really big advantage that electric vehicles have is that they always start. That is one really wonderful thing, is that they always start. And then Scandinavia is the most proliferated EV market, and obviously it's cold there. So, we try to not get too focused on that cold piece. Yes, there is an impact, but it's not significant to the point where you can't have one. Some people, say there's not enough traction for winter. Obviously, many small vehicles also have traction issues. Snow tires. I mean, you could put snow tires on an electric vehicle just like you would on a regular vehicle. So I think it's important to kind of realize that. And, so that matters significantly. And we're seeing more and more kind of four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, etc. Vehicles, and you're going to see that issue. So I have not had problems with mine. Again, 5th winter with an electric vehicle, and it hasn't been an issue for me. Another statement that we hear is that EVs are only commuter cars. Most electric vehicles on the market can get people around, unless you have more than 100-mile commute a day, which is a very rare thing. Most commutes are shorter, around 32 or so. And so, unless you have to drive really, really far daily, you're going to find a vehicle, an all-electric battery that's going to work for you, and certainly a plug-in, because then if you run out of the electric battery, you've got the gas backup. So, it's really not, not a commuter car. I run errands. I do everything I need to do in my vehicle. I am a single person. I have one vehicle. I don't have another option. It's my electric vehicle. So, it gets me where I need to go, and I don't really have to worry about it. So there's also been this statement that EVs are coal cars because they're plugging into the grid. So it's really a coal car. It's plugging into coal. And I think one of the important things to remember is that in Minnesota, especially in XL territory, which you all are, is we have a pretty green grid, and it's actually much greener and than a lot that are out there. And so it really is not the situation that people think it is. It says right here, at least 60, the greenhouse gas reduction of at least 61% in most cases. And, again, depending 95% in others. And it depends on, your grid, and, there's some other options too. You can purchase renewable energy through WindSource at Excel, et cetera, and other places to make all of your power at your house renewable. So you can really make it, a difference there if it's important to you. But our amount of coal in Minnesota, especially in XL territory, is small and shrinking. Another thing that's brought up is, about batteries. It is true that there are some components in electric vehicle batteries that have to be mined. And as we increase electric vehicles and more batteries are made, that becomes more challenging. There's been lots of efforts to reduce the number of, mining that has to happen, and looking at opportunities for recycling. It continues to improve. In 2019, the Department of Energy had its first EV recycling plant. There's been a number of folks that have been looking at and working on situations where you can recycle those batteries for energy storage. There's some projects, I think, that are interesting, that are out there that are really working on that. But this will continue to improve. It's an important topic. There's a lot of smart people working on this. I think we're going to see more and more the recycling components of batteries, those batteries being recycled at the end as well. So I talked about already about the charging infrastructure. There's plenty. We have over 1,000 level 2 and DC fast charging stations in Minnesota alone. I checked that number today. All of the major highways and corridors in Minnesota have DC fast charging. And again, because most of that charging happens at home, you really only need public charging for those really long commute days. The grid can't handle electric vehicles. Again, most of that charging happens at night, and that's when the grid demand is the lowest. And also, renewable energy pairs really well with electric vehicles and can distribute those peak loads. And so we have a number of, we actually at our building, in our work building, have our electric vehicle charger is paired with our solar at work. And so during the workday, when we're working and the sun is shining, we're using that solar power instead of drawing from the grid during the middle of the day. But again, that charging is usually happening at night. So that's a really good peak. That's a really good management tool for distributing the electric demand on the grid for utilities. And also the Public Utilities Commission did require all public utilities to have an EV plan in place. And so they are, most of them have already filed their plans, and they are really working at it. Excel. I'm going to talk a bit about Excel in a minute here, but they're the electric utilities, they're okay with it. They want this. They're really focusing on electric vehicles as part of their customer product. So I'm going to talk a little bit about tools and resources. If you've been out and about or peeked around about electric vehicles at all, you probably know this guy. His name is Jukka Kukkonen. He's a guy from Finland and has been an EV advocate for, 10 years here in Minnesota, and has a business called Shift to Electric. The website is down at the bottom here. He's, has a great website, has a bunch of different information on there about home charging, about sales, about, the guides, about, some particular salesmen that are, people have had a good experience with. There's an EV owners group on Facebook. They do monthly meetings. It's just a really, really, really great resource. So Shift to Electric is that resource. One of the things, he has a lot of different things on his website, but one of the things that he has, and I just posted, cut and paste this one. It was just updated in February, so just in the last 2 weeks. He keeps an up-to-date list of all of the available models of electric vehicles in the Midwest on the sheet that he updates once a month, every other month, and it has the make, the model, a picture of it. It has, it even has the information about what the tax credit is for each of the vehicles, because it's based on the manufacturer and how many vehicles they've sold. So it's really cool to see, like, you'll know the vehicle, and Tesla is out of it, so there's no tax credit for Teslas, but it'll show you which they have. It shows towing capacity and the miles range. I mean, it just has all the information they need. It's a great way to look at it, and it shows just the vehicles that are available in the Midwest, because the coasts have more availability for vehicles because they have policies, and so that incentivize, and so more manufacturers are sending their vehicles to the coasts instead of the Midwest. But that's changing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Xcel Energy, just because you are an Xcel Energy territory. They're going all in. They announced last August this vision of powering. They want to provide the electricity for your electric vehicle, and they want to power 1.5 million vehicles in their service territories in the next decade. And so, as part of that, 20% of the vehicles on the road would, be electric vehicles. And they know it's going to save a lot of fuel costs and cutting carbon emissions in their transportation. And they have huge carbon emission reductions goals. So, they've got some great resources on their website. I'm going to do another page here that talks a bit about some of the resources. They have it's pretty cool. You can go on and you can browse electric vehicles. They have on their website, you can go and look at different vehicles that they have on there. They show incentives and rebates, including there's a couple of rebates from some manufacturers. I think Nissan Leaf, I think it was like $6,000. I don't remember what it was exactly. And then they have EV charging programs for customers. So I'm going to go deeper into that next. So they have several charging programs. So they have a program where you can pay as you go, charging at home. They have a subscription pilot where you can pay a flat fee for all, as much charging as you do per month. They have a situation where it's time of day and they have a separate meter and you can get charged a much lower amount for charging overnight. They want to encourage you to charge overnight. That's better for the grid. And so you can get a really discounted price for your electricity, but you would only be able to charge during those hours, and it's a separate meter for your charger. You could have a whole home time of day rate where your whole home is on this rate, and so then you're still you can plug in during the day, but it's going to be much more expensive than plugging in at night. And that doesn't apply just to your car, it applies to your whole home. So that's a whole conversation about, are you willing to do laundry, at a certain point at night or early in the morning, because your whole house is on this kind of time of day rate. And then regular residential, that is what we all have if you don't subscribe to another pricing program. So that's just regular electricity from Xcel with no special program. And then they also have an option where you can charge, you can exclusively charge with renewable energy. And that's a great option as well. So a lot of options for Xcel Energy customers. And I have the link here. But if you just Google Xcel Energy electric vehicles, it'll pop up their site and you can go look at it. It's got some great information. So again, another resource, PlugShare, that is the main site app that folks that have electric vehicles use to find a charging. If you're out and about and you need it, or if you're going to go somewhere and you're going to need it at some point, you can plan your trip that way as well. Another thing that's pretty cool is that the Minnesota Department of Transportation has an EV dashboard. And so this is a map that I just cut and pasted from their website that's interactive. You can hover over and it'll tell you about those stations. And the green over here, the green grid, is how many electric vehicles are registered in that location. And then the blue are showing the charging stations. So it's number of registered vehicles in green and the charging stations are in blue. So you can really look at kind of all of the charging stations. And then over here, we just have the information, how many chargers. That's how I knew we had over 1,000, because we have 824 level 2 and 187 DC fast chargers. And then this just gives you how many, based on how many vehicles we have, how many vehicles per charger. And then it also has the vehicles, total vehicles. So all in all, in Minnesota, we have right around 14,500 either battery electric or plug-in electric vehicles in Minnesota. So it's a pretty small number, but it's been growing. It's been fun to watch that grow. And this is just for the super nerds. So John, you, there's a site, the Union of Concerned Scientists has a site where you can plug in your zip code and the kind of car you have, and it'll tell you, kind of how clean your car is, what is the pollution, etc. And so I plugged in mine. I put in my Nissan Leaf and the 2019, and it shows that, this car produces as much global warming pollution as a gasoline vehicle getting 55 miles per gallon. So pretty cool. The last resource, I think it's the last resource I want to talk about, is the Drive Electric Minnesota. It's a statewide partnership, really, focused on encouraging EV deployment across the state. It is facilitated by Great Plains Institute. I guess I guess we talked about CERTS, but so CERTS is a partnership, and one of the partners is Great Plains, and that is where I work. I'm an employee of the Great Plains Institute, but I spend most of my time directing the metro region of the statewide program called CERTS. And, it's utilities, nonprofits, charging providers, all kinds of folks. So that's what the Drive Electric Minnesota is. It's a great resource for blogs and stories and resources. And I'll show you a few things that we have that might be interesting to you. We have this electric vehicle fast facts. It's essentially some of the myths that I talked about, and just, here are the facts about electric vehicles. We have this social media guide, for a city, or folks that want to, tweet out, information. I mean, education is an important piece. We really need to increase education about electric vehicles. So here's a great piece that you can use for that. We have a guide for purchasing an EV charging station, and it's mostly focused on level 2, but it does include, kind of what's right for a homeowner on it as well. And then we have a deeper document called Electric Vehicles in Minnesota Top 10. The fast facts was kind of culled from the Electric Vehicles in Minnesota Top 10 with just the core kind of tidbits and facts that folks need to drive electric or really need to understand. But the Electric Vehicles in Minnesota Top 10 is a 4-page document with a fact and a bunch of bullets and some resources. So really if you really want to have a deeper understanding, you can look at that piece. And then lastly, I don't know how many people saw this. Oh, I probably didn't do the voice. Hang on a second. I'm going to do something. I'm going to share again, but I have to share my computer sound. Sorry about that. Okay. I don't know how many people watched the Super Bowl, but this was my favorite part.
Did you know that Norway sells way more electric cars per capita than the US? Norway. Well, I won't stand for it. Come on.
Uh-oh.
Never mind. With GM's new Ultium battery, we're gonna crush those losers. Crush them! Let's go, America. Keenan, Norway's out EVing us. Wait, what's this?
Oh, it's my daughter's birthday. She's really into pirates
I don't
lately.
care. Grab an EV, meet me in Norway.
Okay, can I say goodbye to my family?
Nope.
All right.
Aquafina, sorry to disturb you, but Norway's beating us at EVs.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh. Meet me there in an hour.
Can I ride with you?
No! GM's Ultium battery is made for all types of vehicles, so soon everyone can drive an EV. Whoa!
Why didn't we all just go together?
Knowing Will, he's probably flying private.
Hey, Norway, listen up, you fish-loving! Oh, this place is adorable. Damn it. Where are you guys?
We're in Finland. Where are you?
I'm in Norway.
Norway? You're in Sweden.
Damn it!
All right. I just had to share that. I hope you could hear it. It's such a great video that was unveiled at the Super Bowl. And again, it's about the GM announcement about not having tailpipe emissions after 2035. So I will stop sharing, and I think probably questions.
Thank you, Diana. There are a few questions already. So the first one was in the chat box, and Paul asks, do we know how much the chargers at the community center are being used so far? COVID has probably slowed things down at the beginning. I guess I can answer that one. There does seem to be a steady flow of people using the chargers. It's not a lot of people, but there are both residents and city staff using them. So they are actually being used most of the day. And there's a certain amount of time that they can be used for free. And then after that time period's done, they the resident or whoever's using it would be charged. But yeah, they're being used. But also with the community center being closed, there's hasn't been a lot of people visiting, although it is open now, just still not up to where it was before. Another question: there is much development for hydrogen fuel cells to power EV. Where do you think that is going?
You know, I am not an expert on hydrogen fuel cells. I have a colleague that is very interested in that. I don't think they're going to overtake EVs anytime soon. There's, I think there's some more, it's just recently come up again. So I'm not sure exactly, but, we'll watch as that comes. I think, one of the pieces is, kind of, that's a lot of development that needs to happen. And I think the EVs are kind of going off on their own. We'll see what happens with hydrogen cars, but I am not hydrogen fuel cells. I'm not an expert on that.
It's all right. Thank you, Diana. I mean, even just having an answer is always good.
Yeah.
All right. So there's
Oh,
another
you
question.
couldn't see the video. I'm sorry. I'll put the link in the chat.
Good idea. So here's another question. John says that I support renewable energy and reduced emissions. I also support full disclosure though, and I don't see green initiatives going out of their way to communicate the negative aspects. I think it would help if the market hype of all the positives also covered the birth to life to death negatives. Why isn't that done?
Well, I think, I think it is a bit. I mean, I did talk about the reduction of the battery use. I did talk about, battery recycling, how there's mining and there's, some things that need to happen there. So, I know that, especially even, with the batteries, the recycling, when it comes down to it, the global warming, and greenhouse gas reduction from an electric vehicle outweighs kind of that recycling of the batteries. It's the electric vehicle is going to be better for climate. But yeah, there are problems. It's not a silver bullet, and I think that we're trying to just move forward with the best scenario possible. But absolutely, I'm talk about the challenges as well. And I don't know, John, if you want to share anything.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I think that was John Hoffman asking the question, not me. But
Yes.
yeah, John, I would love to have more of a discussion about that actually. From an electric vehicle standpoint, I've got one too, and while there are some downsides, boy, I just the upsides just far outweigh it. So I'd love to get your thoughts on what some of the other downsides that you're seeing are. And I think if I were to guess, knowing you a little bit, one of the difficulties is there's so many details. When you take a look to see exactly which utility you get your power from and how much of that power comes from coal, for example, or there's just so many variables in there that make it very hard. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's probably not talked about a lot, is people kind of glaze over when you start talking about what the real carbon impact is, because it just varies by utility and it's changing so quickly. As I'm sure Xcel has announced that by 2050, I think they announced about 2 years ago, they're going to be completely renewable, and their CEO has been edging that back up. I think the latest number I saw was 2040. So they're being very aggressive. And so I think we see a couple of things coming together here, that Xcel is going gangbusters at getting all renewable. And then we've seen electric cars are still only about less than 2%. So hopefully they grow at a time when the grid is renewable, so that a lot of the downsides are overcome. But we should talk about this offline.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Diana. Another question we have is how much time should I plan for charging stops on a road trip?
It depends on where you're going, and what kind of charger and what kind of car. I mean, it depends on a number of factors, but if you're going on a road trip, you're going to probably want DC fast chargers. And it depends on how often you stop. I mean, I don't think it's generally not going to be that much different than how often you would stop to get a bio break and get out of a car and stretch, a couple hours. And then with a DC fast charger, about a half an hour will get you quite a few miles back on the car. Again, it depends on how far you're going, what your vehicle range is. I mean, there's a lot of factors, but I usually time it out for stopping for lunch, grab a bite, stop and go for a little walk. If I'm on a road trip, I want to get out of my car and walk around a little bit. And so I just planned it into it. But yeah, you can get from a DC fast charger, you can get quite a bit of charge in a half an hour. And also, I don't know if folks heard, so I put the YouTube video. I'm so sorry. I don't know why you couldn't see it because it was on my PowerPoint screen. So that was really weird. But so I posted it in the chat so you can see the commercial. It's pretty great.
Thank you for doing that. I think people would enjoy that. Another question we have, Jennifer Olson of the EQC asks, if you could talk about what types of chargers you prefer for your electric vehicle.
She wrote batteries. I don't choose the battery. I choose the car, and whatever batteries in the car is there. So maybe she could clarify if she meant charger. I mean, most electric vehicles now come with an adapter that can plug right into a 240 outlet. So with my first vehicle, I actually had a level 2 charger in my garage. When I say I have a charger, I don't actually have a charger in my garage. I have the adapter for my vehicle that I can plug into the front of my vehicle, and it has a 240 plug, and I have a 240 outlet in my garage, and that's what I do. I plug it in. So the charger is that adapter, that plug extension. You don't choose, the battery for your vehicle. Whatever vehicle you're buying has the battery in it. There's not a choice, except for that you can buy a vehicle with a bigger battery that has a longer range. I prefer that.
If the question is about chargers, I'm not an expert on chargers by any stretch, but I've got a Levitron charger that was highly recommended me by some electricians. So if that was the question.
Thank you to the both of you for your input. I don't remember if I said charger or battery, so I apologize. Jennifer did write batteries though.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another question. So John Hoffman also asks if you've ever arrived at a charger and then had to wait in line for it.
I did once when I had my first vehicle. I went to a Metro Transit, ride and share or something, and they only had one charger, and a car that was not an electric vehicle was parked there. I think they did a park and ride, and they just didn't see it, didn't care. I was very frustrated. We call that getting iced by an internal combustion engine, but generally not. And on PlugShare, when you look at the PlugShare, you can see if they're in use or not. So you can find, before you get there, you can find out if they're in use.
Thank you. Great answer. Another question. So Paul asks, will we have more choices for electric vehicles if the MPCA adopts the clean cars rule, and what can we do to encourage its adoption?
There definitely will be some more choices. That's one of the issues here. And that's just what it does is it signals to the manufacturers, that, they need to, bring more vehicles here. And so it gives us more options. I am not an expert on the clean cars rule, and CERTS and Drive Electric Minnesota don't have position on it for a number of reasons. But you know, I believe that there's Fresh Energy has been really active on this issue, and they have some good stuff on their website as far as the myths about clean cars, because I think there's a lot of myths out there about clean cars, like you're going to be forced to buy an electric vehicle, you're not going to be able to buy the truck you want, you're not, you know, all these things that are just not true. So the Fresh Energy website has some great blogs and information about the myths out there. And I believe that there's opportunities to do public comment, etc. You can probably find that information on the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency website.
Thank you. That's lots of good information. Another question. This is from Mary. Are there electric vehicles available now that are similar to mid to large SUVs and have a higher towing capacity of 3,000 to 5,000 pounds?
Well, I would look at that shift to electric EV info list.
Go
ahead.
You save you a little time on that. So Audi has one, the e-tron. It's about the size, a little bit bigger than a Q5. So it's an SUV, all-wheel drive, and it has a towing capacity, I think, of 4,000 pounds.
4,400.
Yep. So that would be one. I would also add that one of the things about the list that Diana put up there is some manufacturers aren't making cars available in the Midwest, which is kind of limiting. And you made that point earlier. And I started doing some research on Consumer's Guide. And at the time that I was doing the research, this isn't an advertisement for Hyundai because I'm not connected to them, but the number one choice was the Hyundai Kona. And so, I read through the whole thing and realized why they recommended it. And so I started looking around, and Hyundai doesn't make them available in Minnesota. And so I literally was thinking about buying it in some other part of the country. So I started with the local Hyundai dealer to make sure they could service it if I bought it someplace else. And it turns out that they actually buy them. They'll buy them from other dealers in other parts of the country and then bring them in. And so when you go to the NPCA list, and if it says that it's not available, what I found is maybe or maybe not, because some dealers are going ahead and taking some initiative. So that's what I did. I ended up buying it locally.
So I just put the link to the info list into the chat here as well. But another vehicle on here is the Lincoln Aviator Grand Touring. It's a plug-in hybrid that has a 5,600 towing capacity. That's what's great about this list from Yuka, is that he has like everything you need to know: the towing capacity, the what the charging it. I mean, just everything. So it's a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
So I see a question in here. Can we find charge stations from smartphone Google Map? So I don't know if Google Map does, but if you're on Google, you can just plug in PlugShare and it'll find it for you. If you have an electric vehicle, most of them have onboard ones. You can just press a button on the screen that says find charging stations, find charging station nearest me, and it'll show you which ones are there. So you have that, and then just the PlugShare app on your phone. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any other questions. Does anyone else in or attending have any questions or comments they'd like to add? It is 8 o'clock, so we can definitely end, but if you would like to answer or ask a few more questions, I'm sure we'd be fine staying on for a little while longer.
Yeah, I'm fine. I hate not seeing your faces. Thank you everyone for inviting me. I really, I'm happy to be here and share my experience and knowledge. I grew up in White Bear Lake, so Shoreview is just down the road from my hometown. Go Bears. Happy to be here and work with your community and provide some information. You're really lucky you have a very, very committed Environmental Quality Commission, and they're doing great work. So congrats to you all.
Thank you, Diana. It's you covered a lot of ground in an hour. Appreciate it.
You did.
There is one more question, Diana, if you have a little bit
Oh,
of
sure.
time still.
Yeah.
This is from Jeff Bartlett, and it's a little bit of a long question, but he says, it seems like the landscape is changing fast, thrillingly though, and barriers to ownership are falling one after another. Do you have a sense of what may be the next threshold or milestone we will cross in Minnesota? Is it a new federal program, that $100 per kilowatt threshold, or perhaps another manufacturer going all in as GM just did?
That is a really good question. I mean, definitely battery price dropping is huge. More vehicle choices. And so while I, professionally, we don't support or oppose, we don't have a position on Clean Cars Minnesota. I agree that there will be more choices in Minnesota, and that is an issue. That is a barrier. We've heard that from lots of people, that there are not enough choices. I mean, and they're growing. I mean, when I bought my first electric vehicle in 2013, and there just weren't very many. So there weren't a lot of choices. As those choices grow, because people still view electric vehicles as small little clown cars, and they're just not. But the SUV and trucks, in Minnesota and greater Minnesota, getting that, and Ford is planning on putting out an electric F-150 in the next 18 to 24 months, so that is going to be, to me, that's the game changer. An electric Ford F-150 is a game changer.
Thank you. Another great answer, like usual. There is one more question. So Diane Close asks how complicated it would be to install a charger in the garage.
Well, John, why don't you take this one? I mean, I had somebody, I just had to have the electricity put in, and then you just plug in the charger. I mean, the charger isn't hard to install. It's just if you have 240 electricity in your garage, that's the bigger barrier.
Yeah, so when I had it done, I just got an electric car recently, but I've been doing solar in the house since 2012 or so, and I'm now on my second generation panels. And so when the electrician came to do the little extra wiring that needed to be done for the second generation panels, I asked him just to do the charging station. And literally, I just ordered it I got a recommendation, and I ordered it on Amazon, and he installed it. There was 220 not far from there, but it took him a couple hours to install it, I think. It just depends kind of how far away your 220 line is from where you're going to go in the garage, but it wasn't a big deal to put it in.
Yeah.
Would have been a big deal for me to put it in. It wasn't a big deal for him.
Right. Yeah. I don't put them in myself. Somebody asked if my slides will be available. I can email them. Maybe. It's a pretty big deck. So I don't know if you guys have a way to distribute or how you do things, but I mean, I'll put my email in the chat, and if somebody wants them, I can email them to them or to you all. I don't know how you get things to people.
Would it work to send it to Maria, I think, for distribution?
I'm not sure if I'll be able to distribute anything. I don't have anyone's email addresses from those attending, but the recording of this presentation will be put on the city's webpage. So if you go to the Environmental Quality Committee's webpage and under the speaker series, the link that was for tonight will show the recording. That should hopefully be up, if not this week, very early next week.
And I just put my email in the chat if somebody wants to email me. Again, it might be too big to get to you depending on, but I might be able to upload it as a Google, onto Google, and figure that out. As we get fancier PowerPoints, they're pretty big and they're not all email will accept them. So, but if you email me out, I can get you, we can figure it out. I have faith.
Thank you for doing that, Diana. Well, I don't think there's any other questions, and you have your email address in there. You sent the link for the video for the Super Bowl commercial. Not sure if there's anything else, John, Diane, if you have anything else to add.
No,
We really love that you all could come. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Diana, for presenting, John for being a host as well. And don't forget, and anyone who's attending, that the next speaker series event is going to be on March 17th. I know John mentioned that earlier. But it's going to be on planting for pollinators and clean water.
I hope I didn't go through too fast. I know it was a lot of information. I was trying to just give little bits and pieces, but hopefully gave you like an overview of the
right.
scenario.
Awesome.
Awesome.
It was definitely very, very helpful, Diana. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all good to go, everyone. Thank you again for coming, and we'll hope to see you next time.
Great. All right. Good night.
Bye. Thank you.